Welcome to Backwards Incompatible, the video game retrospective podcast that's banned in the state of Ohio. My name's Garrett.
Oh no! Anyway, my name is Chase.
And I'm Justin.
Nice to see y'all tonight. Well, not really see, but talking with y'all.
What are you talking about? We're all at the same table right now.
I think Garrett's gone delusional.
Yeah.
We're totally not in 3 different places, and Garrett's not on the other side of the state. No. This is all in person.
No, in reality, I'm just sitting outside Garrett's window staring at him.
Shit, me too.
Yo, what the? Oh, damn.
Oh, hey.
All right. So how have you guys been? What have you guys been doing for fun lately besides gaming?
Work?
Can you really call that fun?
No.
But it's about the highlight of our days.
Yeah. I just watched the Netflix movie Nimona. Have you guys seen that yet?
I haven't. I've been trying to watch it. I have seen only one clip of it that has really made me want to watch it, and I haven't yet.
It was so delightful. Like, that movie is so great. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the graphic novel it's based off of.
I am not.
I haven't read it myself, but it's one of those graphic novels that I've definitely been aware of for a good number of years, and I know that this movie, it was originally being made by Blue Sky back in the day until Disney bought them out and then canceled it, so it's just been stuck in limbo, but it's now here on Netflix, and yeah, it's really enjoyable. The voice acting is just phenomenally well done, and the animation, well, I'm not going to say it's on par with, say, Spider-Verse or anything, but it's definitely a very well animated and very charming art style.
I especially like the art style that has been coming out ever since like Into the Spider-Verse and like even Mitchell's versus the Machines and Puss in Boots, like that type of animation I'm really liking.
It's also a wonderfully progressive film as well. A lot of pro-LGBT and trans messaging as well, which is just really nice to see.
Yeah, it's nice to see more of that kind of come around as we progress further as a society.
Yeah, like the character of Nimona, I don't know how intentional this is, but I think knowing about the author's background and all that, I think it might be. Nimona being a, I guess, metaphor for being transgender or at the very least gender fluid is very nice to see. Like, I am glad. I wouldn't call it subtle per se. It's one of those themes or messages that if you know to look out for it, you definitely see it. And I, for one, think that's great. As someone who has a complicated relationship with gender identity, a lot of Nimona's lines in the movie just really resonated with me.
Yeah, I do feel that.
But yeah, Nimona, great movie, highly recommend it. It is just a really, really delightful animated film.
I'll have to check it out.
All right, well, with that said, Garrett, what are we in for today? What game are we talking about?
Today we are talking about Samus Aran in Metroid Zero Mission.
Yeah, Metroid Zero Mission, released in North America on February 9th, 2004 for the Game Boy Advance, developed by Nintendo and directed by, I'm probably going to butcher this, apologies, Yoshio Sakamoto.
Actually, yeah, that's how you say it.
Oh, well, all that anime is paying off.
There you go, good job.
We went back and forth on whether to do the original Metroid or the remake, but we ended up going with the remake just because, hot take, the original Metroid has not aged well in my opinion. I've tried to play it and it just doesn't really hold up. I respect it, of course, for what it did. It's the first game in the Metroid series, but gameplay-wise, it is very much a product of its time.
Yeah, and Zero Mission really brought out more of the lore. I mean, granted, there was very small dialogue in the very first game, and really the dialogue, well, more like the monologues that are in this game really stretch out the world, and I really enjoyed that. Apparently that was like really hard to do, of course.
Yeah, there were also additional brief cutscenes that expanded on it as well.
Yeah. Oh man, those comic book cutscenes though, they were very nice.
Yeah, let's get this out of the way first. This game looks gorgeous.
Oh yes.
It is a very nice aesthetic to it.
Nintendo really wanted to go for a comic book type of look to it, and I think it comes across very well.
Oh, yeah.
There is a wide color palette, so much saturation, the colors just pop out at you.
Yeah, I notice a lot of their color choice tend to like lean into like a lot of like shades of green, blue, purple, and yellows.
It gives off this very interesting, almost neon, biological, I don't want to say organic per se look, but well, on one hand, you could argue that it takes away from the more intimidating, isolated feel that the original was going for, but I think it really works works in this game's favor.
Oh, yeah.
I will say that the color palette is an interesting choice, being that it's so colorful and still able to give off the vibe of, when I think of space adventures, I do think of kind of those kind of more brighter colors, in which case, like, the music really helps. Can we talk about that music?
Oh, go ahead.
The music is so atmospheric.
Metroid in general has always been known for its musical score, especially in the more modern games, but the little stings or motifs that play. You have the title theme, which of course gets stuck in your head every time you boot the game up. A couple of my favorite tracks are the first time Samus appears, her fanfare, or every time you pick up a new item or upgrade, that little jingle, I guess you could call it, that plays. It feels so cathartic. It's like you have just gone through hell fighting through all these aliens and treacherous environments, and then you finally get like a missile upgrade or something, and you just become all the more powerful. And the motif that plays is just so ethereal.
I especially enjoy the save room ones as well. I don't know. With it kind of makes me feel like I'm surrounded by these computers with like having to press all these buttons in order to save and kind of reset myself, you know?
Yeah, it's a classic staple in a lot of games that the save room kind of feels like this haven, this eye of the storm, really, where it's the one place where you feel safe.
I think it's because they keep that music, you know, throughout games. That's why it's familiar to the beginning where we thought nothing of it.
Although apparently enemies can still chase you into the save room, because there was a point later on where I think it was on the space pirate ship. I go into the save room and I'm like, okay, they can't get me in here. And then one of the space pirates followed me in and I'm like, no, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to do that. That's against the rules.
It's probably just for that specific area because of just how that whole place is set up.
Yeah, but the whole time I'm just like, okay, a save room. Okay, I'm safe in here. They can't get me in here. No.
Yeah.
A claw comes around the corner.
Just really changes everything you expect out of it.
We might as well mention, the music was composed by Kenji Yamamoto and Minako Hamano. Again, apologies if I mispronounce those names, but Yamamoto, he's done a lot of musical work for Nintendo over the years. He's mostly well known for the Metroid series, but he's also done work on the Donkey Kong games as well. And yes, as mentioned, Metroid Zero Mission is a remake of the original Metroid from 1986, which was directed by Makoto Kano.
Thank you, Makoto Kano. I can tell you this much. Yoshio Sakamoto really wanted this older game to be able to be delivered to, you know, more newer audience, kind of revive the franchise.
Well, it's because at the time, Metroid Fusion had just released, and a lot of new people were being introduced to the franchise that way. So Sakamoto said, well, we gotta bring back the original for all these new fans, and here we are.
Very well received, of course, selling 439,000 in the US upon its release and 69,000 copies in Japan. So overall, a really wide success.
Yeah, well, I feel like Metroid has never been a huge seller for Nintendo, so we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, I mean, it made like over $900,000 in revenue.
Fair enough, but I mean, you compare it to like some of Nintendo's bigger franchises like Mario or Zelda.
True.
Apples to oranges, bruh.
But that's like on Netflix comparing a bunch of the other shows to like Stranger Things.
Yeah, and they keep canceling everything that don't meet those expectations, so...
Yeah.
Still waiting for Metroid Prime 4, Nintendo. Alright. The original Metroid was directed by Satoru Okada and designed by Hiroji Kiyotake. So, when the original Metroid was in development, the developers wanted it to be a halfway point, a sort of hybrid of the platforming gameplay of Super Mario Bros., mixed with the more exploration and combat influences of Legend of Zelda.
Yes. And also the platforming of Mario that you can kind of see throughout.
Yeah, it does have like a nice combination of like being a platformer while also being a shooter at the same time.
Not to mention it's kind of an open world.
They also took, of course, a lot of aesthetic inspiration from the movie Alien, which, okay, I have to point this out. I feel like almost every sci-fi game we've talked about has drawn inspiration from the Aliens movies. Like, it's funny how those movies keep coming up.
But still, think about it though. When you think of like classic like alien-based sci-fi movies, that's like the main ones that come to mind because of how well they did.
I mean, don't get me wrong, yeah, it makes sense. They're very prominent sci-fi movies. It's just funny how so many games, I feel like throughout the 80s and 90s, they directly cite Aliens as one of their main influences. It's just a fun drinking game to play.
Really, they pay homage to it in one of the characters, Ridley.
In more ways than one, because not only is his name Ridley after the director of the Alien movies, Ridley Scott, but also his design is like a cross between a xenomorph and a pteranodon dragon, I guess.
Yeah, it does have like a very interesting design with that being like a weird xenomorph. It's very bird-esque.
So I understood the xenomorph kind of look, but the pteranodon, as you said, do you know what that could be, why he chose that design?
I guess to stand out more from just a generic xenomorph look.
I guess. Kind of like a ancient evil kind of esque vibe, maybe? Because since like we think dinosaurs old.
Yeah, maybe to kind of make him look a bit more, maybe not ancient, but just very alien, for lack of a better term. He's a very unusual looking dude, that Ridley.
Yeah.
Or, as he's more infamously known throughout the galaxy, XXX_DeRidster 42069.
Oh.
I believe that's his professional name.
He still lives in his mother's basement.
I mean, his mother brain basement.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Mother Brain's design too? I really like the design of Mother Brain.
I mean, it's a big brain in a jar, but...
Well, I didn't expect the eyeball.
Yeah, but I mean, just like, as simple as it is, there's just something imposing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you encounter a brain the size of a bus, you're gonna be intimidated. Also, it can shoot lightning through its eyeball.
Before we jump forward into like Mother Brain and Ridley and all that, why don't we just explain the kind of premise and then we can be like, this is who Mother Brain is to us and this is who Ridley is to us, and then we'll kind of describe Mother Brain a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course. Take it away, Garrett.
All right. So, planet Zebes? Is it Zebes or Zebes?
I think it's Zebes.
Yeah, I think it's Zebes. So, planet Zebes, once a thriving, living planet that belonged to the Chozo race, who then disappeared one fateful day. I can't remember if it was over a couple of years.
Kind of a bird race.
Yeah, and I noticed like their civilization seemed to have like a lot of like ancient Egyptian like mythology type inspired type things going on.
Yeah, they kind of remind me of the Arakakra from D&D.
Yeah, I do see that.
Yeah, and I especially love that they brought Egyptian kind of into it, because to be honest, that old temple feeling and those old kind of drawings, it puts me a little bit kind of like, oh, this is creepy, but this is like an intriguing creepy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really adds to the world of Metroid that there's this ancient civilization.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, this is where our story kind of takes place. Actually, the whole thing takes place. So the Zebesians, which are referred to as like the space pirates, they move into the Chozo ruins, and the Zebesians are led by Old Mother Brain.
Can we just talk about that name? They're mostly referred to as space pirates, and I get that describes what they are, but I feel like that's such a generic, uncreative name. Like, oh, they're space pirates. They don't have a specific faction or, I guess, clan name.
But I feel like that's how it is with a lot of sci-fi things, because a lot of times you just always have these just generic space pirates.
They're just the space pirates. I don't know. That's one of those things that's always kind of stood out to me about Metroid lore, is the main, I guess, quote-unquote villains are just known by this very generic name.
Yeah, and I will say that I think easier to incorporate a big baddie, especially for one that like wants to destroy the universe, kind of like how the space pirates want to, using a sort of occupation that allows a lot of flexibility, in which case pirates is one of those occupations.
Does it ever explain why they want to destroy the universe?
I tried looking into it, but I couldn't find anything.
Well, I think it's just because Ridley is a big dick. Like, he is a horrible monster. He killed Samus's parents and burned down her hometown.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what does he expect to happen when he does that? What is he gonna do then? Just die? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, this is it.
I imagine Ridley's gonna be like Thanos at the end of Infinity War. He just takes up farming or gardening as a hobby.
He just goes on vacation. It's like, just kicks back and relaxes.
Yeah, it's definitely a little different in terms of his thinking. I don't know, especially with what the species that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Go ahead, Chase.
But But yes, so the direct plot of this game, as you mentioned, Garrett, the space pirates, they raid a Federation ship, the Federation being, the Federation, the main government of the galaxy, and on board that ship were specimens of Metroids. These things, going back to the alien influence, these things are kind of a facehugger-inspired creature.
They do try and grab onto your head.
Kind of like head crabs.
They do suck the life out of you.
They suck your life force, your energy. No. They look like squishy jellyfish things. I just want to squeeze them.
Yeah, with the brain.
Yeah, just like with little teeth under them.
Do you think Mother Brain has any relation to these Metroids at all?
Perhaps.
I mean, considering it's like a brain, I don't know. Me think hard.
How to defeat Mother Brain. You just gotta smooth her out, get rid of her wrinkles. Mother Brain be like, I just weaponized the most dangerous life form in the galaxy. I forgot.
Basically, these Metroids are known to have taken out a planet called SR-388, all in pretty much one day.
Yeah, the Metroids, they're parasitic mass flood alien life form, like xenomorphs or the Flood from Halo or the Zerg from StarCraft. They only exist to reproduce and destroy all other life by sucking their brain juices. They gotta get smarter.
But reading to the lore of like the Metroids, it seems like they apparently have different forms and different body structures where they originate from, which is SR-388.
Yeah, that comes into play in the later games.
Oh, that's cool.
I do like the design of the Metroids, though. Like I said, they are these floating parasite jellyfish things, and honestly, I think they're kind of adorable.
Yeah.
I feel like that's somewhat on purpose to lure players into a bit of a false sense of security, because you look at them and you're like, oh, they're just big balloons. I mean, they have spiky teeth and all, but they can't be that bad. And then they latch onto you, and they will not let go unless you use the ball-form bombs to get them off, and they're just sucking Samus's energy dry, and if you get stuck in a room with several Metroids, they can overwhelm you very, very quickly. They move fast.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what's this cute, adorable thing? Oh god, get it off of me!
Start spamming.
Kill it with fire.
Why do they keep coming from the darkness?
Where are they coming from?
I also like how in this remake, you can see them coming from the distance. They're like getting closer and closer to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somewhat ominous. Anyway, yeah, back to the plot though. So after the space pirates raid the Federation ship and grab all the Metroids, they escape to the planet Zebes where their Mother Brain home base is, and as mentioned, they're going to unleash the Metroids upon the galaxy. So the Federation sends in a task force to deal with them, and they all get slaughtered. So then they turn to the most badass bounty hunter in the galaxy, Samus Aran. Or is it Aran? I've heard both versions.
I've heard Aran more.
I don't know. I used to say Aran, just like weird, but
We'll just go with Aran.
Yeah.
But Samus Aran, hoo boy, let's talk about Samus. Oh man.
So a little backstory on her. Like, her parents was killed by Ridley. Home was destroyed when she was a child. But she was actually raised by the Chozo race.
Well, after she got the Batman treatment, she was taken in by the Chozo, and they raised her, and they also infused her with Chozo DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. I just thought, like, they were like, here, you are a mighty warrior, because, I don't know, reasons.
Well, we see in this game, towards the end, when you get that flashback of a young Samus being escorted by one of the Chozo elders, and they just splice her DNA with Chozo.
Yeah, here's a question, though. With that modifications, how would that affect if she were to ever have kids?
Well,
I don't know. It's probably not something that would really show out. It's probably something that makes her able to link with the armor, because I'm guessing the armor can only link to Chozo DNA. Is that what I'm getting at?
Possibly. I mean, I feel like you can make a case that one of the themes of this game is that of motherhood. I mean, Mother Brain, it's right there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like what it could do is that then maybe her kids and descendants would be able to use the suit if that is the case, because they would have that kind of gene in them then, if it can be even passed on.
Oh man, Samus is just such a great character. She was one of the first playable female characters in video games.
And what a badass she is.
A lot of people when they played the original thought that it was, a guy, until it was revealed at the end that,
right.
Hey!
In the original Metroid, it was not obvious that Samus was a woman because of her suit. It was deliberately designed to have a fairly androgynous looking armor. Like, you don't look at Samus's armor and think, that could be a man or it could be a woman.
Oh, yeah.
And if you beat the original Metroid in under 5 hours, there was an additional cutscene where Samus takes her helmet off, revealing that, you mean we were playing as the super badass space bounty hunter and it was a woman? What?
Oh, and did that work? And Samus doesn't necessarily choose to, doesn't really necessarily point it out either. It's a very neutral name.
Revolutionary.
It was, yeah. Apparently, the reason they decided to make Samus a woman was because the developers believed it would be very unexpected and would make the game stand out more from its competitors at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on one hand, I do admire the progressiveness of it and that it's really cool that we can have this really badass space marine bounty hunter character be a woman. At the same time, the original Metroid had the Justin Bailey password, which stripped Samus down to a bikini, so there's that.
Yeah, I feel like wasn't there like several games like in that area with female characters where you could like do something to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, that was just the nature of the time, but I mean, I guess there is a discussion to be had of, oh, is Samus just a badass just because she's really cool at action and really strong and powerful and can kill a bunch of stuff? Is that how we define what makes a character really strong and well developed? I mean, to be fair, I feel like for a long time in gaming history, yeah, because you compare Samus to many other protagonists, she does stand out, but Samus is, to an extent, a bit of a relic of this bygone era when silent protagonists were still very much the default, so there's not too much characterization to Samus, at least in this game. I know in later games that a lot of the extended lore does delve into her personality a lot more, but for the most part, she is a silent protagonist.
I don't really blame the silent protagonist. As I've said in past videos, it's definitely a way for us, the player, to kind of relate. And even though I knew Samus was like female, because she was sort of like silent and kind of like, I felt like playing as her, like I was her. Seeing her in her eyes, her thoughts, especially in those cinematic scenes, and really I feel that Yoshio Sakamoto and team really did a great job of harnessing the emotions that could have went through Samus Aran's head.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say Samus is completely a blank slate or without a personality. She's very expressive through her eyes and her facial expressions, I would argue.
Yeah.
She comes across as very stoic, but I think given the circumstances she often finds herself in, there's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, there's plenty of male protagonists that are pretty much the same thing, so having a female spin on it isn't entirely unwelcome.
Yeah, and plus, like, some people would argue in those kind of situations, it's better to be stoic.
I mean, it's certainly not a bad thing. It's just something I've noticed that it's a bit of a product of the time, but to the series' credit, I would say Samus, like I said, she does express herself through more physical pantomimes, I guess you could say. And in this game, Zero Mission, we do get a beginning and ending monologue of Samus thinking to herself, which does give us a little bit of insight into her personal outlook on the matter.
Yeah, I guess, like, it's very interesting how us humans can look at grammar and we'll think of, oh, how is this person saying it? Well, how this person is saying it can tell us a little bit about who they are.
Yeah, she kind of looks back on Zebes, her home planet, as a bit of a forlorn nostalgia.
It's definitely, I don't know, to me, I would be really depressed if my home planet was basically a space pirate. Fanatics.
I think Samus is a very self-reflective individual. I think she often thinks about her individualness and her personal history and her place in the wider galaxy. At least that's how I interpret it.
And her place is shooting lasers.
I think one good bit of emotion that's kind of conveyed is one of the cutscenes in the ruins right before you get the like completed suit or whatever it was called, because you just kind of see her standing like next to one of the bird people.
Let's talk about these upgrades, because Metroid is, of course, one of the originators of the Metroidvania genre. Wow, who would have thought based on the name? I've always found it kind of funny that Castlevania gets saddled in alongside Metroid, even though I don't believe Castlevania became a Metroidvania until Symphony of the Night in like the mid-90s, so a good number of years after Metroid, but oh well, what can you do? Anyone who's familiar with Metroidvania knows that they're kind of a pseudo open world 2D game, but the main hook is you have to unlock the map piece by piece based on what upgrades and abilities you pick up along the way. There are certain areas of the map that you can't directly access immediately until you get the appropriate upgrade, which I think is an interesting way to go about it, because with Zero Mission, the game can be played non-linear. You can go about it any particular way you can if you're skilled or talented enough, but there is an intended order in which you have to play through.
Oh yeah, and some of the ways to get to certain areas is pretty like creative and interesting, because watching like one of the playthroughs, like they were using the freezing ability to freeze enemies to use them as platforms to get to higher areas.
I will say, like, okay, the gameplay is very creative, but I don't know, I found it very tedious, and to keep on kind of going back to the same area, fighting the same enemies, and then doing these like super acrobatic moves just to get to the right area. I understood, like, oh, I have to do this platforming thing. That's totally fine. But it was just so many skills I had to put on the floor. It definitely does challenge you. I will say that. It is a great game to challenge you.
Yeah.
To me, it always felt very tedious, at least in the beginning of the game, where I had to keep going back to the same area, and I kind of got bored of it because I'd see the same thing over and over again, and then that boredom led to slight annoyance.
I will have to agree with the tediousness, because that's one of the reasons why I never actually beat the games myself, is because like I go in and play, and then it just all the tedious acrobatics and everything like that, I just eventually just got tired of that and just stopped playing.
Well, I feel like that's just Metroidvania games in general. A lot of it does involve backtracking and a lot of movement abilities. Maybe I just had a different experience than you guys just because I'm more familiar with the genre and I've played other Metroid games before. I played through both Dread and Super Metroid. I also used to play Prime, but I don't think I ever finished Prime. But anyway, you do have to give props to the level design, though. A lot of the areas are designed in a way to not make it obvious of where to go or what to do, but there are little subtle hints. Like, there are these areas or tunnels that might be colored slightly different that kind of cues you in of like, ooh, maybe I can interact with this. Or the way passages or enemies will move around you, that makes you think, okay, there's got to be a way I can access this. I just don't know how.
Yeah, it does definitely feel like a bit of a labyrinth going through the map.
It feels congested at times, but I think that's the big reason why Metroid is good, because it gives you that cramped space feeling in this kind of 2D screen that you're looking at.
Yeah, and also one thing I find interesting about the whole map design is it's very like cavey, but then there's just this random bits of like industrialized like building pieces for like a laboratory, and then you get to like bits of ruins thrown in too, and it's just a very interesting mesh of everything together.
Burning lava zones that are just full of pain.
Or just like acid areas too.
Yeah, it does add to the sense of isolation, but I mean, it also helps that you have some of the Chozo statues that when you activate them, they give you a hint of what area you're supposed to go to next. Or you can just do what I do and just blow everything up around you at any given time, and you'll blow down an obstacle eventually.
I definitely do feel like we did two different types of playstyles. I was like the meticulous one trying to like figure out how to solve this puzzle and hurting my brain, and Chase going boom boom. And it's satisfying. It was satisfying to me once we got the Varia suit. By the way, that's what it's called, the upgrade. Best upgrade you can get. Because to me, when I could finally swim in lava, I knew everything in life.
Everything's great now.
Yeah, getting the Varia suit upgrade and being able to traverse through lava and acid really takes a lot of the pressure off when moving through hazardous environments. It makes the rest of the game significantly easier. And really, all of the upgrades are pretty useful.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like abilities and upgrades in Metroid games tend to be pretty meticulous in that they're less of a, oh, I'm only going to be using this ability for this specific situation, and more of a, no, this is just a straight-on upgrade. Samus is becoming all the more powerful with each item you acquire. Take the missiles, for example. Those things are going to be your best friend when it comes to boss fights.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the ever-iconic Morph Ball ability, which I'm pretty sure in most Metroid games is the first ability you unlock. If you crouch down enough, Samus will turn into a little ball, allowing you to roll through tight passageways, but the only thing I think about whenever I use it is what is going on with Samus's skeleton? Like, how does this ability work? Because she goes from a 6-foot-tall suit of armor into a bowling ball in the blink of an eye, and I'm just like, well, her spine is pudding now.
Well, you see, the real answer is she's part armadillo.
Chozo DNA.
I guess.
There's a bird that turns into a dive bomb. I don't know. That's so cramped. But to be honest, that's just like housing nowadays.
Topical.
Yeah.
There's also the ice speed where you can freeze stuff.
I don't know. I felt like I used that freezer one the most often to get to places because, of course, that's what it was made for. But it made the bosses a little bit more interactive, especially there was one. It was like a bee. It was like I forgot what it was called.
Imago, I think its name was.
Oh, you mean the giant flying thing with the stinger that had like 12 eyes? It looked like it was a weird creature. If I was looking at it, I decided to count the eyes because it looked like it had like 6 eyes on both sides, and it's like its wings are like dragonfly wings.
By the way, this is just for like a little easy mode against this boss. I found that whenever it went from left to right, you could run and angle your gun and fire at it, and then just run on the way back and morph into a ball until it goes back over you, and just keep doing it. That was the easiest way I could find to beat the boss.
You have to shoot its stinger at you, and that thing flies really fast, so it's hard to get a shot on it. Speaking of the ball morph, using the ball bombs where you can just lay a bunch of bombs, using them to bounce around and get to higher elevations before you unlock the jump, that is a real skill or technique, I would have to say, is planting all these bombs in such a way that you can continually get higher and higher and reach higher elevations before you unlock the high jump. There were definitely several areas of the game where I don't think I was supposed to reach without the high jump, but utilizing the bombs, I was able to just propel myself upwards.
Now, that would be interesting to like figure out, is if that was an intentional feature for you to be able to do that, or if that was just something that happened and just they rolled with it.
I think it was intentional because you do bounce off of them. They probably wouldn't put that in there unless they want some sort of physicality, but I think it was intentionally put in there.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like it's the gaming equivalent of mise-en-scène. Everything that you can do in gameplay is intentional. Now, granted, there's sequence breaking and all that. There are some ways you can utilize it that the developers hadn't thought of, but I think we can safely assume that this was intentional.
I can definitely say I wouldn't have thought to use the bombs as sort of like getting to higher places if I did not play TF2.
TF2, it teaches you everything about gaming.
Yeah.
There was also the charge ability where you can charge up your beam attack by holding down the fire button, but to be honest, I didn't really utilize it all that much. I don't know, I feel like a lot of the enemies move fast enough that charging it makes you vulnerable for too long, even though it's only a couple seconds. I just felt it was a lot more efficient to just keep spamming the attack button.
Same. Kept the pace going.
That's how I feel like with a lot of games that have like those charge attacks, is that I end up not using them because they just leave you too vulnerable.
Unless the payoff is like super big, like they get like a status effect like concussion or something like that, then I won't really do it.
Did you guys notice that some of the areas had what looked like Mario warp pipes that those bug aliens would spawn out of continuously? I just thought of Mario warp pipes.
Of course. I actually have a note right here.
Now, speaking of bugs, you know those like weird like bug sack hive things that would just spawn bugs they had to kind of break to get out to continue through that way? Those things grossed me out a little bit. It made me feel uncomfortable.
Bugs, though, are really great for, like, if you're in a bind, like you're low health and low missile ammo, great for farming.
Yeah, you can grind off of them.
Share your energy with me, bugs!
What is my purpose? You provide Samus with batteries. Oh my god. Or those little tiny parasite bugs that latch onto you, and you gotta lure them into those egg sack looking things so they clear the way for you. Those things were just gross, and they just latch onto you. Ugh.
Now that we've talked about gross enemies, what would you say your favorite enemy is? My favorite enemy, which is mostly just by design, is just the very simple enemies that you find, like those little crab-like characters with like the big eyes that stick off from them. I just find them really adorable, and I can't help but just love them.
Are we including boss fights?
Yeah, just any enemy.
Well, gotta give props to my boy Ridley. That dude is so cool. Have you seen his online persona name?
You know, I really want to say Ridley, but like, even though his design is very iconic, I'm gotta go with probably the Metroids themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the Metroids, if we're talking like just normal enemies, the Metroids, even though they show up relatively late into the game, they make their presence known, as we mentioned. They are challenging, but when you finally do kill them, it does feel so rewarding. It's like you overcame this deadly predator. Also, the name Metroid is a portmanteau of Metro and Android.
Oh, interesting.
English.
Yeah, that's where the name comes from. While we're on the subject of boss fights, let's talk about the first main boss you encounter, Kraid, the big Godzilla dinosaur thing.
Yeah, dude, it has like 3 belly buttons that just launch out like little talon claw thingies.
Bro's got a lot of holes.
Yeah, it takes a big swing at you with his claw. He's like, I'm gonna get ya. Oh my god, stop moving.
Dude skipped arm day.
He's like the stereotypical, like, Discord moderator.
Guys, stop posting memes in general or else I will have to ban you. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I do believe Star Wars The Last Jedi is the absolute worst thing to happen in cinema history.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, Kraid, though, he is basically a sci-fi kaiju. I mean, his roar definitely gave me Godzilla or Anguirus vibes.
Well, I mean, like, also a little bit of his design, just with, like, kind of the spikes going down the back, kind of made me think, like, this is just some weird version of, like, Godzilla. It's like, I want to go see Godzilla. We got Godzilla at home. Godzilla at home.
I got Fat Dragon.
Kraid boss fights in Metroid games have always been kind of challenging, just because I feel like they're early enough in the game where you're not fully prepared for them quite yet. Mm-hmm. You just gotta keep shooting missiles into his mouth, getting him to roar and open his mouth, leaving him vulnerable.
Shoot those talons.
Mm-hmm. He does destroy the platforms you're jumping on as the fight goes on, so that adds a little bit of an extra challenge to the fight. Also, I kind of like how instead of having a traditional health bar, bosses will instead turn redder and redder as they take more damage. I don't know, I just think that's a neat way to convey to players the visual cue of, hey, what I'm doing seems to be working.
Can you imagine if, like, Easter egg, I don't know, when did the first Soulsborne game come out? Demon Souls. When did that come out?
2006?
Okay, well, it would have been cool if, like, there was some sort of homage to Dark Souls with that. Can you imagine just, like, there's a health bar, Ridley? Like, Demon Souls kind of, like, looking-esque.
2009, sorry.
Oh, 2009? Dang, I thought Demon Souls came out way earlier than that, like, early 2000s. There goes my ideas. All right, back to it. So Kraid, okay, I don't know. To me, it was kind of disgusting to see those claws come out of his belly button.
It was really weird.
Yeah, he's like a very big dragon thing, but he has very thin, long claws.
Yeah, he skipped arm day.
Can he flex those fingers while they're still attached to him? I think he can. These are the weird questions we ask on Backwards Incompatible.
Exactly. I do find it funny how, to get to the Mother Brain Laboratory, you have to unlock the statue by defeating Ridley and Kraid, and the statue is shaped like their heads, and that's just really narcissistic right there. They're like, alright, our door is just going to be shaped like our faces.
Who's my 2 favorite baby boys, says Mother Brain.
Yeah. Ridley and Kraid are just the 2 brothers to Mother Brain. They're like, yes, mama.
Mm-hmm. No! You killed my brother.
And then, like, after you defeat Kraid, you kind of have to do a little bit of, I want to say, soul searching, because I had to really dig in to kind of try to find out how I get to Ridley's boss room.
Yeah, it does take a while before you get to fight Ridley. Although, after you defeat Kraid and return to Brinstar, you do get the little cutscene showing Ridley flying back to planet Zebes in his ship. I like to imagine he was coming back after a quick trip to CVS with Kraid's meds and Mountain Dew.
Damn it, Kraid! Back out with your insulin, and I gotta give you these potato chips, because to be honest...
Let's talk about the first Ridley fight. I like how he kinda comes out of nowhere. There's a trap door where there's an upgrade in the middle of the area that Samus approaches only for the floor to completely give way to you. I thought that was a fun subversion right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then here comes the boy Ridley. This guy, he's gonna grab you and he's gonna fly up high and shoot you with fire, that boy.
RKO!
But yeah, I found the Ridley boss fight way easier than Kraid. Maybe that's just because at that point you'd picked up enough upgrades where you stand a better chance at surviving more, but I just unloaded missiles into him.
To be honest, like, even though Kraid was kind of more predictable, his attacks were a little bit more wider, I guess is a good word to say it, and they were sometimes hard to kind of avoid if you didn't hit the right buttons in time. But with Ridley, I felt like since it was more like my size, I can kind of predict where Ridley's going to go.
You say my size, but Ridley's size has been very inconsistent. Of course, very famously, one of the reasons he never got into Smash for the longest time was because he was quote-unquote too big for Smash.
Yeah, I mean, and also, did anyone else get annoyed by his screams?
Yeah, I kind of like them.
They were very annoying to me, and, well, maybe it's just because I had sensitivity to, like, really high pitches or whatever, but it was just kind of hurt my ears.
I will say that the roar is definitely very iconic, and I do love it, but I get the point where it can become annoying. I don't know, if you hear that way too much, like, if for some reason, like, the fight goes on longer than you expect, I would get annoyed of it, but thankfully it didn't get to that point for me.
I don't know, maybe playing Smash Ultimate for so long has kind of desensitized me to it. We might as well mention that there was another boss planned, the Crocomire, but it was ultimately cut.
I actually am not familiar with the Crocomire.
It's in Super Metroid. 6-legged crocodile, 4-eyed monster.
Do we know why they, like, cut it out of the battle? I mean, out of the game?
I think it was time crunch, because I know they were on, like, such a short schedule to get this kind of game out because of the funding and stuff. So I think that's why they had to cut some corners.
But yeah, eventually, after you defeat Kraid and Ridley, you unlock the main laboratory area of Zebes where the mother brain is, so Samus has to go in and blow it up. And this is an interesting boss fight because it's kind of like a gauntlet run. You gotta run down this really long hallway where the floor is literally lava. There's a bunch of turrets and laser beams shooting at you. You gotta blast through several gateways in order to get to the mother brain. There is just so much shit flying at you at all times. You have to have it becomes a bullet hell, essentially.
And you have, like, no, like, platform space. Well, I saw there's, like, just 2 small platforms with a gap between them.
Help! I've fallen and I can't get up. That's literally what Mother Brain was.
Oh man, I was stuck on that boss fight for so long because I kept getting knocked off and I couldn't get back on because of all the projectiles, and Mother Brain is engulfing the area with its laser beam.
It hurts. Yeah, and then, like, after that, you can finally really start doing damage to the Mother Brain.
I also appreciated that you had to break through the glass container in order to damage the brain itself. It's not a huge deal or anything, but I felt it added to the intensity of it all.
Yeah. It does have, like, that tense feeling, though, with seeing the countdown, the red flashing lights, the sound telling you, like, hey, it's going.
Voltaire's playing in the background.
Oh, yes.
But of course, Samus does eventually destroy the Mother Brain. Mission complete. Now she can take a leisurely stroll back to her ship and self-destruct sequence initiated. Get the fuck off of Zebes.
Self-destruct sequence initiated. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, you got 2 minutes. You better get back to Samus's ship up on the surface. And I think that's enough time. I was able to get up to the ship with a good 30 seconds to spare.
Yeah.
Now, that is where the original Metroid game ended. Samus escapes from planet Zebes and the galaxy is saved. But in Zero Mission, she gets immediately shot down by the space pirates and crash lands back on Zebes. This time, without her power suit.
Oh boy. You mean we have to change our plane? Our plane?
Well, she now has to wear what is essentially her Evangelion suit, the Zero suit.
Yeah, it is very reminiscent of the Evangelion plug suits. Especially like Shinji's.
Yeah. The theme intensifies in my head.
This is, of course, what makes Zero Mission stand out, is that it introduced the Zero Suit outfit for Samus, where she's just slimmed down to this blue jumpsuit kind of thing. She doesn't have any of her normal abilities. She just has, like, this very weak little laser pistol that barely does any damage.
Yeah, but it does at least stun enemies as far as I understood it.
Yeah, it, like, the charge up, yeah. I will say that I definitely liked the change of pace in terms of it being super sneaky.
Yeah, it turns into a stealth game.
It just completely rewrites the gameplay that you're doing, and then, which I do really like. I like it when games do that, where you just in there get so used to one way, and then they just throw this wrench into your plans, and you gotta completely change your entire line of thinking. It's kind of humbling.
It turns into the stealth game where Samus has to infiltrate the space pirate ship in order to find both her power suit and a way to escape. Yeah, the space pirates, you go from being one of the most powerful beings on the planet to relatively helpless.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but in one of the ventilation shafts on the pirate ship, there appears to be what looks like a gonk droid from Star Wars, you know, the big boxes with legs, and it moves so slowly. I definitely got gonk droid vibes from that. Although, funny enough, apparently, there was a Nintendo Power magazine issue in 2003 that officially shipped Samus with Jango Fett, of all characters.
Yo!
Oh my god.
Samus is Boba Fett's mother confirmed?
Whoa! That explains a lot of the skills.
Does that make Samus a Mandalorian by marriage?
I think so. I mean, she always does wear her armor, and her armor does seem to be like an extension of her.
Well, it isn't also like a rule with Mandalorians not allowed to take off their helmet.
Well, that's just one of the tribe's beliefs specifically.
I don't know a whole lot about the Mandalorian. I really gotta watch that show.
It was alright for the first couple seasons, but then after that, they did the whole Book of Boba Fett thing, and then season 3, I don't know what the hell happened. That was just a complete mess. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion or not, but come at me, Mandalorian stans.
Oh, crap, we have a mob.
Oh no, they found us.
In the Space Pirate ship, one of the Chozo statue that you pick up one of the upgrades in, it's looking kind of saucy in the way it's laying down.
I know! Like, okay.
That statue's looking a bit provocative right there with the way
It was staring at me.
Yeah. I honestly did not notice the statue.
But yeah, Samus eventually fights her way, well, I wouldn't say fight, she sneaks her way through the Space Pirate ship, makes her way up to the Chozo ruins, and she has to fight the ruins themselves, like this weird vision spirit looking thing.
Yeah, it was a very weird thing, and then like it's holding that orb with her in it.
Behold, orb.
You.
I think it's supposed to be her fighting her inner demons or the past that she can't really escape from. It's her confronting herself. That's how I looked at it.
And doesn't that like happen directly after the cutscene that I mentioned earlier?
No, the boss fight is before the cutscene. The cutscene happens afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, this whole Ruins challenge is a really great way to top off the Zero Suit segment. Not only does it start off with a brief flashback showing Samus being taken in by the Chozo, but young Samus, so adorable.
Yeah.
But its background set piece is also pretty distinct. This massive ancient Chozo mural is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
But of course, it also concludes with Samus having finally proven herself and donning the full power suit. She even gets a magical girl transformation.
Hoorah.
Anyway, I just love it when games do this 11th hour power-up where in the last stretch of the game, you are just given free range over all of your abilities. You are super powered to the max. You can just blast your way through the ship. All those space pirates that were previously nigh invincible to you earlier, you can just one-shot them now. They are insects before your mighty power.
Real quick, can we talk about this version of the suit's design with like the extra like purple markings on like the shoulders and stuff like that? I love its design so much.
Mm-hmm. Those spirals really bring the suit together, given that everything is like a circle.
Yes, circle.
Is there anything more pointless in life than a circle, I ask?
No.
Samus's power armor in general looks very distinct. It's not only are the colors very recognizable, but those big shoulder pads. I know it was the 80s when it was designed, but wouldn't say it's one of my personal fashion sense, but you go, girl. If you got it, you flaunt it. Mm-hmm. The helmet and the overall suit kind of reminds me of like one of those old school diver suit kind of things. Anyone else feel that way?
Yeah. A little bit, like those really old ones that had like that big just circle in the front of it.
Yeah, it's like a sci-fi successor to that kind of design, I feel like. I don't know, maybe that's just me.
I can tell you that the first game, like the original in 1986, yeah, I can see that. But this one, it definitely gives it a more sleeker look. Like it's a Mark IV or something like that. You know how the Spartan armor kind of evolves in Halo? I don't know, how were the spacesuits in Alien? Maybe
this is me just because I haven't looked at like Doom in a while, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Doom guy outfit a little bit. Just like the helmet at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe Doom is then inspired by Metroid.
Wouldn't surprise me. I was gonna say, now that I think about it, it kind of gives off like a football player outfit. Anyway, yeah, so the game ends with Samus just blowing her way through the space pirate ship, trying to get off before everything explodes. And then she has to fight Mecha Ridley.
Yes, Mecha Ridley. I'm glad we're talking about this.
I really liked his design. It was really cool.
Bro ate too much spinach.
Props to Ridley. Not only did he make a statue in his image, but he also made a robot in his image. Also, I'm not entirely sure if it's meant to be Ridley's brain uploaded into a robotic version of himself, or if it's an entirely separate machine that just happens to look like Ridley. Ridley.
Yeah, so it's like we don't know if it's just like a egotistical thing or if it's just him just trying to preserve himself.
I think it's both of what you said, Justin.
That would actually make sense.
I don't know. I think it was a machination just kind of like showing off his power, like in his intelligence, like kind of like his magnum opus, I guess.
All we know is that now he's got laser eyes and missiles coming out of his back.
I really like how this boss fight begins. Mecha Ridley slowly crawling along the hangar floor towards Samus, his green eye opening, showing the shutter and everything. Yeah, it's a really cool introduction.
He does seem like he's unfinished due to that. Like, did he just not have time to, like, finish it before he died?
Well, something tells me Ridley's death was very unexpected, so it makes sense that Mecha Ridley isn't completely put together.
Yeah.
It's a very half-finished prototype kind of thing.
If you think about it, technically, that's Ridley's son, and he was trying to get revenge. So, like, the cycle of revenge kind of thing, and now you just killed a father and son.
It's kind of like that idea of, like, in a lot of, like, movies or games where, like, you have this really smart scientist who creates a robot but considers that robot to be their child. So maybe it's like that kind of situation.
Oh my gosh, what if Ridley's a mother?
I'm pretty sure Ridley is male.
Oh, okay. I guess you're right. I don't know. I was just trying to lead to mothers.
One could argue that parenthood, again, going back to that, is a main theme.
Yeah.
To me, it's just kind of sad to kind of see, like, after the game, of course, because before that, I'm like, yeah, that, you mecha.
And that's how I am in a lot of games, too. I'm like, die, and then, like, I play the game again, and now, like, now that I understand and know these characters, suddenly it's like, now I don't feel as good about killing certain characters.
Mm-hmm. I will shed only one tear, and that's from my left eye.
Just that single tear.
Oh yeah, we should probably mention one of the last upgrades you get on the pirate ship, the power bomb.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is basically a mini nuke. It's like the Davy Crockett in Fallout, where it's just a really powerful bomb that destroys everything on screen, including like unlockable passages and everything.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you that every time that I used it, I enjoyed it when the music would kind of cut out, it would slow down, and then it would pick right back up. It kind of like, I liked how it messed up with the music too. Really brings the power.
I didn't use them too much unless I really had to, just because the ammo of them you can carry is so limited.
Yeah, like, I find myself doing a lot in games where, if you have, like, more powerful stuff, I tend to, like, never use anything besides the basics unless I absolutely have to use a more powerful thing.
Yeah. I don't think they do any damage to bosses, or at least not any significant, because I tried using them against Mecha Ridley, and I don't think it did much damage to him. Probably a way to prevent players from just, like, one-shotting the bosses.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that would make Ridley a little too easy, because he had all these things to sort of protect his core, including, like, his claw and stuff. And that small window, so really those mega missiles, those are the real G's.
Right. I gotta say, when I first played through this game, I defeated Mecha Ridley by blowing him up in one shot. Not one shot as in the fight was over, but like, I'm down to like one of my lower energy levels because I keep getting hit by his laser spam. He exposes his core vulnerable for the first time in a while, and I just take one missile shot at him, and boom. It's like the ending to Jaws, I felt like. I'm like, smile, you son of a bitch.
Oh yeah, and also like that whole thing with the core, I love it when games do that, where you have that like one point that's their weak spot. And that's just not necessarily like, I don't like it when if that's the only spot to hit them at, but when that's like their massive damage point.
I don't know where his weakness is, flashing red shoulder.
In universe, you might ask why Ridley put the core so exposed right there, but again, that kind of ties in with the sense that Mecha Ridley was left unfinished.
Yeah, which kind of like close that up, where in a lot of other games, there's no real reason, it's just obviously there for game design, but that one you have some kind of idea or excuse to make for it.
God of War games be like, it's a good thing that when I hit this enemy, he turned flashing red and R3, L3 showed up on the screen.
QC.
Anyway, Samus does eventually destroy Mecha Ridley and will never see Ridley again.
Yay!
Yeah, and then after you destroy Mecha Ridley, guess what? Self-destruct sequence starts up again. This time it's a 5-minute timer, but boy, do you have a long way to go.
Yeah, and you're already back to like that thing of like, you see the counter, screens flashing red, you got that limited time, kind of building up that stress, and you just kind of fighting your way, trying to reach the other ships to like be able to escape.
You got run in between all the space pirates that are sort of trying to stop you, being like, blow up with us.
I'm gonna be honest, this part of the game was kind of my favorite, was the whole, like, this whole spaceship and the ruins and stuff like that. This is really interesting. I'm invested now, and now I'm, like, really want to go back and visit the stuff again, just to kind of, like, now that I have a better understanding.
Yeah, kind of like take your time. I always found that so you play once for fun and twice to understand. I live by that method.
Oh yeah, like a lot of games that I have played, like I'll just like go through and really quickly, mostly doing story stuff, and then I'll go back through and do everything I possibly can, get every little bit of lore knowledge and all that other stuff.
There are multiple endings to this game based on your completion rate. They unlock different artwork of Samus based on the ending.
I think I just got like the basic ending in terms of, because I just always seem to get the basics. I never seem to like be like 100% complete or something like you big dogs.
It just shows off Samus in various outfits and settings. One of her outfits is her orange two-piece, and yeah, it's a pretty good look.
I don't remember the outfit she was in the 100% one, but I know she's like just kind of chilling at like looks like a bar or something like that, just relaxing, having a good time.
She deserves it. You know, after everything she's been through, girl needs a drink.
Oh yeah. She deserves very early retirement.
I like how before you enter the ship, one of the space pirates just jumps out trying to get you, but again, Samus is so powerful you can just one-shot him without even hesitating. I like to imagine this guy thought he was the main character.
Oh yeah, that's what's really funny about games like that. You just like, you destroy the big bad and all the little minions are like, yeah, I can take you.
I ate my Cheerios this morning.
And I had whole milk.
That space pirate, he's just chilling in the fighter and he's just like, oh man, when she gets over here, I'm gonna fucking jump out and I'm gonna blast her. I don't care that she killed Kraid, Ridley, and Mother Brain. I'm gonna be the one that does it.
Oh yeah.
100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and run 5 miles.
Until my hair fell out.
There are the elite space pirate ones, like the black and red ones, I think they were, which take a lot more damage. Those guys were actually a bit of a challenge to overcome, especially when the timer to the ship's self-destruct is going off, and you have to fight them in order to get to the hangar, and it's like, you're so close, just die already.
They're definitely a pill, I will say, a pill.
Speaking about the ships, though, like, especially, like, in that first sequence where you see, like, all the, space pirate ships, like, kind of, like, flying over to, Ridley's, like, mothership kind of thing. They look a bit like tadpoles, but if you want to really go into it, they look like something else as well.
I mean, we can talk about some of the imagery in this game if you really want to. Like how Ridley's mothership kind of looks like his face. Again, Ridley is just, he is just putting his face on everything.
Kind of narcissistic.
Anyway, yeah, so to wrap everything up, Samus escapes on one of the ships, and the galaxy is at peace. So, overall, I really enjoyed this game. It was my first time playing through Metroid Zero Mission, so I might as well talk about my history of Metroid.
Yeah.
I had Metroid Prime on GameCube when I was a kid. I think that was the first FPS game I ever played, now that I think about it, but I never beat it. It was a little bit beyond young kid chase at the time. Years later, when I got into college and started really getting into older retro gaming, I played through Super Metroid and on Super Nintendo, and that game is a blast. That is just a masterpiece of the console. Zero Mission, I bought this game on Game Boy several years ago, and I just never got around to playing it until recently, until just now.
Yeah.
I have played through Metroid Dread. That game was also really solid. I know, Metroid fans are like, he's playing them out of order. You skipped like 3 games, and I know. We'll get to them eventually, don't you worry. Yeah, Metroid games are just so fun. I really like how they drop you into the action, and they really give you a sense of player progression. You do feel like Samus is getting more powerful as you're playing through the game. It feels very organic and natural.
Yeah. My history with the Metroid games, not to interject, sorry, Garrett.
No, you're fine. I was jumping in too.
Since we were in the topic, but like my first experience with them was on the 3DS, like back when I first got mine, like 2012. I got them off the Nintendo eShop, and I started playing them, and I just really could not get into them. And after, like, watching through the playthrough of this game, I'm kind of sad that I didn't get into them, because, especially with Zero Mission, with that extra bit at the end, and how much I loved watching that, I kind of want to go back and play them now.
Yeah, this game, Zero Mission, it's a relatively short game. I beat it in just 4 hours, which I think is average. But it's a very tight, very succinct and to the point game. It's a very meaty game, I would say. You very much get your time's worth out of it.
Okay, so overall, I love about Metroid Zero Mission. I loved the lore. I loved the design, the art, sound design, and as well as the music. Like, everything was that. Only issue I actually had was just the gameplay. I will give it like a good 3 out of 5 on my score, but it's probably just because I suck, guys. Don't come at me. Like,
that's fair.
I probably just sucked at the game, but it was very meticulous to me.
I feel like once you've played one and know what to expect from the genre, subsequent Metroidvania games you just have a higher opinion of.
Kind of like the idea of like Dark Souls, because like when Dark Souls came out, it was like so different from so many other games, and then like you kind of have to get used to that kind of gameplay.
Yeah, I probably, like, if we revisit another Metroid game, I will definitely have an easier time with it as I know what to expect. But boy, it's kind of
they're games that you have to get used to, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. That's called sadism.
Masochism, because that's what us players are if we play those games.
You will suffer.
Die.
All right, well, is there anything else to talk about while we're here? I will say, we will probably be returning to Metroid in the future. We'll definitely be talking about Super Metroid one day, because that game is just immaculate.
I guess.
I also wouldn't say no to doing Metroid Prime someday.
And maybe I'll actually play through it this time.
I do have 2 questions for us before we actually leave that we didn't really talk about. So, in your opinion, what was your favorite domain, region of the map, and why?
Justin, you go first.
Mine would have to be the mothership, because like just that sudden change of like how you have to play, kind of shocking your system, being like, hey, I don't know what's going on here suddenly, I can't fight, and just having to run with the enemies, plus a stealth system where you can go in certain areas and like hide away until they kind of stop searching for you for a bit. It was so different from the rest of it, and I really liked it, plus the colors and aesthetic. I really like purple, and there's so much purple.
Right. Well, of course, the Space Pirate section where Samus is just in her Zero suit for the most part, that was this remake's claim to fame. That's what really set it apart from the original.
Oh, another thing to add, too, is that, like, I was thinking about, like, my favorite places when doing notes, and originally I wrote down Norfair before they got to the mothership.
I would have to say my favorite area, call me basic, but the first area, Brinstar, I don't know, that to me just really encapsulates the sci-fi aesthetic of Metroid. It just feels very Metroid-y to me. There's all these little aliens. The color scheme is purple and green. The music is also really nice in Brinstar. I really like the theme of it. The Chozo ruins were also cool. It's a very brief section, but I just really liked them. I also believe the areas Crateria and Chozodia were new to Zero Suit. They weren't in the original, so that bears worth mentioning.
I really loved Norfair, even though I hear from player communities that it's kind of annoying considering the fire and stuff.
More like no fair.
I actually enjoy fire. I don't know. I like fire in levels. I like fire in games. I don't know. Whenever I was a kid, I wanted to be a firebender because of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I got waterbender.
No, I get that because, like, growing up in the Mario games, like, my favorite levels were, like, the Bowser Castle levels where it's all kind of, like, dark and dingy with the lava and fire everywhere. Also the music.
Yeah.
What were some of your guys' favorite abilities and upgrades you got? Because 2 of mine favorite that I would have to say were just so useful was the ledge grabbing ability where you can just grab onto ledges. That was so useful and made traversing around Zebes so much more practical.
I would have to go with the freezing ability just for the idea of like being able to turn your enemies into literal platforms for you to just jump off them. The ultimate disrespect.
You were trying to kill me? Joke's on you. You're a stepladder now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like the wave beam, even though like it wasn't sort of like super useful.
The one that shoots through walls, right?
Yeah, exactly, that one. Even though it was useful for like taking enemies out from a distance in a safe spot, I just really love its flashiness. Like, that's the reason why I liked it. Not for its usefulness, but for its flashiness.
I also want to say the speed boost, the dash ability it wasn't always practical because you needed a long hallway windup in order to activate it, but once you manage to pull it off, you can just plow through enemies and barriers, and yeah, you ain't stopping the Samus train. She is just gonna blow right through you if you get in her way.
Dum 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 dum. Thomas the Train Engine.
Samus landed on planet Zebes, the very same planet she had once called home. One last thing I just want to say that we might as well mention them. There were a couple times where in ball form you would have to get down into those, I guess, cannons and propel yourself upward.
Oh, yes.
Kind of like the speed run, you can just blast through various aliens without damaging yourself, so you can just annihilate an entire area's worth of aliens if they get caught in your way. There was one section of the game where you have to keep using them. There's like a bunch of those pipes laid out, and you have to keep launching yourself to clear the way in order for you to get a missile upgrade.
Pinball. That's what I refer to it.
Yeah, it becomes pinball.
Oh, I also did like, what was that one? It's where you jumped and when you do the shocking, when you kind of spin.
Yeah, the screw attack. I can't believe we forgot that one.
Yeah, that was cool.
To be fair, you unlock the screw attack ability rather late into the game, but whenever you jump and spin in the air, again, you just annihilate everything to the touch.
Broken ability.
We Sonic the Hedgehog now, boys.
Sonic, gotta go fast.
Samus just goes up to Ridley and is like, "Chili dog, you're too slow."
No.
I've come to make an announcement.
Yeah, the spin dash ability is, again, because it's unlocked relatively late, you don't get too much time with it, but the time you do is well cherished.
Yeah.
Oh, an enemy is trying to get the drop on you? I'll just jump and, oh, they're dead now. Turn to ash, reduced to atoms.
Nothing but dust.
It is a bit frustrating, though, when you have to freeze an enemy to use them as a platformer, but you accidentally spin dash them. Oh, whoops.
Oh, gotta leave the room.
Yeah, the spin dash ability is so cool. Man, Samus is so cool.
I wish I could be cool.
We'll make do with what we're given. All right, well, we might as well wrap things up now. Sounds like we're kind of winding down here, unless you guys have any final concluding thoughts.
I don't have any final concluding thoughts.
Great game. People should play.
At least try.
I guess that's the over-under our take on this. If you want to get into the Metroid series, you might as well go with Zero Mission because it's a remake of the original game. It's a great place to start, and I think it holds up pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
It is weird that we're at a point where the remake is getting a bit on the older side because 2004 was almost 20 years ago.
Don't mention that.
I was in elementary school.
I was in preschool.
I was 4.
Oh, little baby Justin, look at him, he's so cute. Alright, tag yourself. I'm Mother Brain, evidently.
I will be Kraid because I love being big.
I am random unnamed centipede boss that you run into.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your listenership. If you'd like to get into contact with us, you can send us an email at backwardscompatible.pod@gmail.com. Just like Amelia did. We have an email, guys.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, please tell us.
Amelia says, "Hey guys, I recently found your podcast and I'm really liking it. It really does make the commute to work much more bearable. You guys have such a charming relationship with one another. Keep it up. Also, Chase, I believe in your Half-Life episode you meant to say pareidolia, not paraphernalia, when talking about the nihil length. Winky face. And, okay, yeah, I caught that on editing. I misspoke. I said paraphernalia, not pareidolia. I'm sorry. I misspoke, everybody. I don't know how to use words.
Speech therapy. And by the way, if you could do a very helpful thing for us, leave us a review on your platform of choice. It really helps us get our name out there. And also, if you leave those kind of critiques, it does help us. We just want to hear you because you're part of this community just as much as we are a part of you.
We do it for you people out there, all you beautiful listeners. This is for you.
It's all for you.
Now get back to work.
Yes, master.
I say we deserve a 3.5-star rating because we're decent, but I wouldn't call us great yet.
We're getting there.
I like 60%.
Anyways, you want me to send it off here then?
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Thank you guys all for listening, and we hope to see you guys next time in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.